Hello, everybody. This is Ron Sheetz. Welcome to a call regarding the Media Summit that's coming up next month in October on the 13th and 14th here in Cleveland, Ohio. I have with me on the phone a very good friend of mine who I met in Mastermind many years back. I can't even remember how long ago it was. But I met Mike McGroarty in the first Mastermind group that I joined. And early on, you kind of size up and assess people in the room as you're going around, and you try to figure out, okay, who's doing what, who's the smart cookies in the room, and so forth. And Mike introduced himself, told what he did as a business, and he'll share that in a minute. And I kind of, in the back of my mind, wrongly said, okay, what can this, bibbed overhaul wearing dirt farmer teach me about the business that I'm in? Well, it turns out that he could teach me a lot, and thankfully I wisened up very, very quickly and listened to Mike, and I'm proud to call him a friend, and we've gotten together a lot over the years and really kind of talked about business. So I want to introduce you to Mike. Mike, I've asked to join us at the summit, and as I've talked about in many of the communications that we've had, is the summit is going to be about media, more specifically media strategies, because the challenge that I find with most people in business, dentists included, is that they go about entering into a media to communicate with an audience, and they either have no plan, no system, no strategy, or they don't know much at all about the media that they're using. So in the summit, we're going to talk about media strategies with different media and different ways to approach it successfully that you can adapt in your business. And Mike has a very honed set of skills as to what he does with his business that we'll get into here over the next few minutes. So let me just turn this over to Mike. Mike, thanks for joining me on this, and kind of give people an idea of who you are and what your business is.
All right. Hey, thanks for inviting me. And, I'm going to touch on something else that you said, when you and I first met, and I truly believe that you were right in being suspect of me, because at the time, not only was I a bib overall wearing dirt farmer, but I was actually a city employee. So, and I know people in general have opinions of city employees, and I'm not going to try and change that because I have my own. But at the time, that's significant because at the time, I was working full-time for the city. I'd been there 20-some years, and I had this very successful business going on the side that I wasn't quite sure what to do with because I had my eye on this government pension thing. So, but anyway, all that aside, my background is landscape gardening, and years ago I was landscaping houses, probably landscaped over 1,000 houses. I have experience in the nursery business, and then way back in, I think, 96, I wrote a book on plant propagation, and the internet was just a baby back then, and I kind of stumbled into the fact that this was going to be a big thing, so I forced myself to learn the internet, and so I was early on the internet and had this gardening website, built a pretty significant email list. But I think where this really starts to come into play with what Ron is teaching at this summit is the fact that I was working a full-time job. I got up every morning, went to work, and came home every night, and my business almost ran on autopilot because of the technology that I had mastered and some of the skills that I had learned. So, and I think that's kind of why he's asked me to step in and kind of help all of you figure out how to automate more of your prospect attraction and conversion into paying clients.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's another portion of that. You hit it right on the head. Is the idea of how you attract people. Because like you said, you were doing it as a part-time thing, but it was very successful, which you ultimately left the full-time city work, which we were continuing to ask you in Mastermind. It's like, why do you keep fiddling around with that when you're doing so well on this other thing? But the other thing that you do that you'll be able to, share with people is how to attract. And you talked about the business that you're in, the gardening, the backyard gardening and that. But truly, in our world, you and I, and what we do as marketers, how would you identify what business you are really in?
Well, I'm in the business of marketing, and I'm in the business of attracting the ideal prospect and getting them into my funnel, or let's say we put them in a seat on the Ferris wheel and just watch it go around until they are ready to buy.
Yeah, and that's where Mike's talking about. He's automated the business. That's putting them into, or putting them on the seats of the Ferris wheel, and then the automation of communicating with them and nurturing them and converting them to the point that they buy. So as he said, and that's the important thing for people to hear, is that his deliverable, the products, the training, the education, and what he teaches people to do is not really the business that he's in. The business he's in is marketing of that, as the dentist is in marketing dentistry, because you know how to drill, you know how to fill, you know how to do all of that stuff. What they don't teach you is how to get patients in the door, keep patients in the seat, get them coming back to the seat, getting them to say yes to the dentistry. So the other thing that I think is very important is the mistake that I almost made very early on when we met, and that was not thinking that I could learn something from Mike in what he was doing. And the important thing is to always understand the biggest lessons that you learn in business come from outside of your own industry. Which is one of the reasons that we masterminded in the first place, was to bring a bunch of different people together, which we're going to do at the summit. But a couple of important takeaways from what Mike said. So, Mike, talk about, if you will, this is what you're going to share at the summit, talk to people about, but what does this automation look like that you have set up that just kind of chugs along? We've talked before, you mentioned it, that, you know, when you go to bed at night, people are getting put on your list. People are making a buying decision. They're getting off your list. So kind of give us a 30,000-foot view of how your business is set up, what it does for you.
You know, my business, first of all, what I do is very different from what a dentist might do, but how we go about it logistically can very much be the same. So we have all kinds of these little pieces in place that attract people to us, and in my case, a lot of articles and stuff on websites and YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. But by the same token, I run this business on a local basis too, and I just had a pretty phenomenal weekend for September. Just finished it 3 hours ago, and we're going to do it again next weekend, and it's predictable. You know, I turn this thing on, and all the people show up, they buy a ton of stuff, and they go home, and I turn it off, and I'll turn it back on next Friday. So that's really how your marketing should work. So basically what we do online, and which is very similar to what you're going to want to do with your dentistry, even though it doesn't have to be online. There are a lot of different ways to do it. But you're going to attract people to you and get them to raise their hand and show a little bit of interest in something that you're promoting. It could be just general, your general dentistry. It could be, specialty things like cosmetic dentistry, and I know you guys do all kinds of crazy stuff that I don't know anything about. But anyway, whatever it is, you can get people to raise their hand and say, you know what, I am interested. In what they're really saying is, I am a potential prospect. But when you meet with them, or maybe you have a little tiny seminar where you have 8 or 10 of them in a room and you explain what the processes are, not all 8 or 10 are going to buy, and they're not going to buy for a variety of different reasons. Well, you don't want to just let them walk out the door and never be in touch with you again, because they raised their hand in the first place, and that is really, really valuable. So you're going to put them into your system, and then you're going to touch them on a regular basis. You could touch them through direct mail. You can touch them through email. You can touch them using video. There are a lot of different things that you can do, and it's not sell. It's make them understand what you do, make them get comfortable with you, because, dentistry is a pretty personal thing, so it's kind of a tough decision to decide who you're going to choose. So, and all of that can actually be automated, and you don't need expensive tools. You don't need, the technology that makes your head hurt. I mean, I'm 61 years old, and I can make this stuff work. So if I can do it, anybody can do it, because deep down inside, I'm still that, dirt farmer in bib overalls.
You used the word email, and I think that word, or that media, and it is a media because it's delivering information, communication with people, But I think that media has kind of now the same stigmatism that I get a lot when I talk to people about delivering, audio CDs or DVDs, something in physical form. People tell me all the time, well, why do I want to send a DVD? Because computers don't have DVD players, cars don't have audio CD players, and so forth. Yet we still send them out successfully. How do you find email working for you? Because people think it's dead or it's not being paid attention to.
Our business runs almost exclusively on email because people hear about us, they see something that we did online, an article or maybe a video, and they're curious enough about what we're doing that they will give up their email address. And you've heard me say this before. Sometimes it feels like it's easier to get people to give you their credit card number than it is an email address because nobody wants more email. People are kind of burnt out with email, but the truth is those who are truly interested welcome the emails that you send. I have people thank me continually. Some people have been following me for 17 or 18 years, and they thank me for providing the information that I provide, for staying in touch with them. So it's the same kind of thing that would work in a dental practice. You can touch people in a lot of different ways, and one of them could very well be email. And if that email is informative and helps them understand more about what it is that they've raised their hand for in the first place and shown some interest in, let's say that it's implants. Implants are considerably more expensive than just a general dentistry procedure. So that's a bigger buying decision, and not everybody buys on day one. My customers don't buy on day one. At one time, we studied them when we were selling a $300 product, and back then the average was they would buy on day 106. So that means that some people bought on day one, some bought on day 3, some bought on day 850. But on day 850, we had not forgotten about them. We were still touching them as if we were a friend, and it was done in a welcoming way, because with email, especially when you do it commercially, there's a link at the bottom, and they can kick you to the curb anytime they want. So you're not really forcing anything on them.
And with your email, so that everybody understands, because dentists don't like, selling, the idea of selling for dentists is it's a dirty word, and it's uncomfortable, and it shouldn't have to be done, and it's understandable because we're talking about people's health. But with the messages that you do in email, is it used car salesman arm twisting messages, or what is it that you're providing to people in general that gets them to stay with you 858 days to that point where they do buy?
Well, they've joined my list because they have an interest in some kind of gardening, whatever it is. They may have found me because their rhododendron was struggling or their hydrangea wasn't blooming the way they thought it should bloom, but whatever it is. So they were willing to give me their email address so that I could and would send them more information on a variety of different gardening topics. So that's what we send them. So, and we try and make it as timely as possible. So if it's July or August and people are battling with Japanese beetles eating all the leaves off their plants, and we send something out and say, okay, this is what's up with the Japanese beetles, and don't worry about the beetles, but you really need to you need to get rid of the grubs in your lawn. And then we explain that, we do an article that shows photos of the grubs in the lawn and the damage that the grubs are doing, and explain how the grubs emerge into beetles. So we educate them about something that they wanted to be educated about. And I'm sure that I have dentists on my mailing list, and they stay on the list because, they're curious. They own a house and they, have problems in their garden. So it's the same kind of thing. It's not sell. We give them information, and then we put a link in the email that suggests that they can grow plants at home for profit, which is really what our product is. And that's up to them whether they click that link or not. It's like a headline, and if it appeals to them, they're going to click on it. If it doesn't appeal to them, they are just going to consume the information that we give and be happy with it.
Now, somebody who's listening might wrongly jump to the conclusion and say, well, Mike, dentistry is different than what it is that you're promoting, that you're selling in information. People aren't going to be as interested dentistry isn't as interesting as a hobby like gardening or that. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, dentistry may not be as interesting. You know, it's kind of a necessary evil. At least it is with me. It's a necessary evil. But by the same token, if I were considering a important dental procedure, then I would be all ears. It's kind of, you know, one of the greatest marketing lessons that we've all learned over time is that when you are addressing a prospect, it's really important to enter the conversation that they are already having with themselves. So if somebody is considering dental implants, or they're considering, you know, some kind of cosmetic surgery, teeth whitening, you know, whatever it is, they've already got that going on in their subconscious. So when you bring it up and you mention it and you send them some information that's going to help them better understand how you do the procedure is different or better than somebody else, they're going to be all ears, because that's in their subconscious, and this is something that they've got going on, you know, on a regular basis. And that's kind of, you know, marketing 101. I mean, you and I both know that we learned way back, if you go way back in marketing, you know, it's important with any kind of marketing that you get there. It's the AIDA formula, AIDA, get their attention, get their interest, create some desire, and then ask them to take action. But Dan Kennedy has taught us the same thing, is that you start with a problem and you present the problem, you agitate the problem, and then you provide the solution, then you call for action. So basically, it's the same kind of thing with the dentistry or whatever it is. You could be selling steaks, or, you know, was the guy that had a book on how to teach your parrot tricks, and he sold a ton of those things. So it doesn't matter what you're selling. You know, the formula never changes. The approach never changes. The only thing that really changes is the product.
Yeah. Now, you said something very important. You said you're 61 years old. Dentistry is a necessary evil for you, as it is for everybody. So is it, I know the answer to this, but for you, if you don't have a dentist, making that decision to jump into a dentist's office, is that something that you make easily?
No, of course not. I mean, the other day, 2 days ago, I got an email from my brother, or a post on Facebook from my brother. Hey, my dentist retired. Who knows a good dentist? So in other words, he's just not going to go online, or, you know, in the old days, open the yellow pages. He wants to find somebody that other people are comfortable with, and for a lot of different reasons. You know, people are reluctant to get into a dentist's office where they think they're going to get hard sold into some really expensive procedure. So, you know, and that's why when you do these multiple touches, every little touch, you kind of give them a peek behind the curtain, and you let them get to know the doctor. So in other words, you have a website for your practice, and on that homepage, and you told me, Ron, that people expect to see certain things on a website, a picture of the dentist, a picture of the staff, and there was a third thing. What was it?
Usually they want to see what the office looks like, because they're judging, is it clean, is it presentable, is it a safe place? Right.
So on the homepage of your website, that's pretty much what most of you have. You got a list of the procedures that and then maybe if you click on a link, there's a page behind that procedure, contact information, all of that kind of stuff. But what you really want on that website is you want this thing to look like a deck of cards that has been spread out across a table, and there are 3 or 4 pages that the general public gets to see anytime they want, and then there are 40 or 45 pages. It doesn't have to be that many. It can be 5, it can be 10. But these are pages that typically people don't see. But there are also pages that might come up if somebody is doing a very specific Google search, kind of the long tail keyword thing, if you're familiar with that at all. But anyway, these pages are very specific to different. Each one's going to be a topic, and it could be a picture of you and your wife and you and your kids, and just a little tiny bit of your personal life, because people, you know, a dentist is a dentist, but they really want to know that your human being has the same emotions and feelings that they have. So that's why, you know, you kind of drip all of this on them in such a way that they don't ever feel sold. They just feel informed.
Yeah. And to connect the dots here from what Mike's talking about. And overall, as I said at the beginning of this, what we're going to cover in this summit is strategies and how to use the media. So to connect the dots here, so Mike's talking about how to drip on people and all this automated process. And what I'm talking about, what I tell dentists to use, is their patients' stories, their stories. The stories, Mike pointed out a very important formula, problem, agitate, solution. So you never are able to connect with a patient thoroughly until you're able to connect to that patient's pain. You have to, because a patient doesn't care about you, doesn't care about what type of technology you have and all that. They have one interest. Are you going to be able to take care of their problem, whatever it may be? It may be a tooth pain, it may be cleaning needs, maybe Invisalign, whatever. But until you connect with their pain, they won't listen. It doesn't catch their attention. So I teach how to use patient stories. Mike is talking to you about how you drip on it. Well, everybody struggles for, what do I say in an email? Well, you've got tons of stories. So really to connect the dots for how this whole summit as a whole, just between Mike and I, we have, and that's why I've asked Mike to be there, is that it connects all the dots as to how you can put all of these media together so that they work for you. An important thing that he said is so that you're not selling to them, but they're wanting to buy. And their buying is saying, yes, I trust you, I like you, I feel comfortable coming to you, I can see you as my dentist. So don't make the mistake that I made so many years ago when I first met Mike, is that, well, what can this guy teach me? What can I learn there? You're going to learn specific strategies on how to use the media. So these are things that, and an important part of this summit is that we're going to sit down with you. So if you're able to connect and identify with what Mike's telling you, you're going to sit down at the table with Mike, and you're going to tell him what your problems are. And he's going to say, here's, what you can do. Here's how I've dealt with that. So this is really going to be it's truly going to be a mastermind situation.
Yeah, exactly, because you're not trying to put a ton of people in this room. You want it to be very personal and intimate, where people actually can ask questions and get advice and kind of drill down a little bit. I'm going to touch on something that you and I both have said, because twice now we both have mentioned pain. And, of course, I'm sure dentists hate to hear that, because, too often dental procedures, that people are afraid of the pain. But the pain that we're overlooking in this conversation right now is the emotional pain of people who are considering some kind of a more advanced dental procedure, because you have patients who you've helped. They've had front teeth that look terrible, whatever it is, discolored that you've whitened or misaligned or whatever it is, and now all of a sudden these people feel like they're born again. They're not afraid to go out in public. They're not afraid to smile, and those are the kind of stories that you can get across using these methods. And that's going to really resonate with the prospect, because they have the same exact emotions that patient had, and that patient is very, very happy with you. So those are the kind of things that, because nobody's going to sit and watch a 60 or 90-minute online video about dentistry, but they will happily watch a series of 1, 2, 3, 4-minute videos that are showing real people that have been through the exact same thing that they have been through. So that's why, and that's one of the things. Of course, another thing that, you in dental school, you learn a ton of things that I know nothing about. But marketing is a lot deeper than most people think. And one of the things that I did when I worked for the city for 25 years, I studied marketing every minute I had, because they weren't very good at keeping me busy. So I would work real hard, and then I'd go park my car somewhere and read a marketing article. So I'll admit that now that I'm no longer employed there.
Yeah, but there's a lesson in that.
That's a true story.
Yeah. So I think that's about it. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to meet Mike and hear from Mike and really get a sense of, what Mike can really share with you and deliver. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask him to be there. I've asked a couple of other my close friends to be there, and they all have unique specialties in what their experiences are and can share. And as you heard from Mike, what he's going to share comes from experience. So this isn't conjecture. This isn't academic and so on and so forth. So, Mike, I appreciate you taking the time. We spent probably a little more time than I expected, and you're always giving. So I appreciate the time you've taken to, any last words of wisdom before we wrap this up?
The only last thing I'm going to say is that, you know, if you're listening to this call, then you are clearly somewhat interested, somewhat on the fence. And when you go to an event like this, you only need to walk away with one little tiny thing that you can apply to what you're doing in your own practice to make it well worthwhile and possibly, well, I don't want to say life-changing, but I know that some of this stuff can be life-changing if it is, employed properly. So that's all I got to say.
And good point. Good point. You only need one thing to take away and make everything worthwhile. If you've, heard enough and you're ready and you haven't already, go to www.askronsheets.com/eclipse, like the solar eclipse that we just had on August 21st, which is kind of the spearhead of this whole thing is, and you've already read about that story. I already written to you about that. But this is really about eclipsing your fellow dentists. And I hate to use the term competition because dentists don't generally like to talk about competing with one another. But you truly are in a competition with not only dentists, but other things that patients are going to invest their money in. If not dentistry, they're going to spend it on something else. And as Mike pointed out, this is, very emotional. So if you've heard enough, you're ready, go to askronsheets.com/eclipse.pdf, and you'll be able to download the registration form directly. Go ahead and fill that out, fax that back. If you don't have a fax machine, which you probably should, but if you don't, go ahead and fill it out, scan it, email it to me at ron@rjmediamagic.com, or for a much quicker process, fill it out, complete it, take a snapshot with your smartphone, and go ahead and send me the image via text message, SMS text message, to 440-263-2891. We're going to limit this to only 10 practices. That means 10 doctors and 10 right-hand people. So we're going to have no more than 20 people in the room at maximum so that we can give that personal attention. So, Mike, thanks again for giving so much here and offering to come and share at the event. All
right. Now, if I go to askronsheets.com, is there a button I can click right on that page to get to where I need to be?
There is. There'll be a picture there of the application, and you can click on that, take you right to there, so that you don't have to worry about remembering the PDF side of it. Absolutely. And if you do go, it's a good point, if you do go to askronsheets.com, that page itself, if you have a question and don't have the opportunity to ask it, you got a question about the summit or something, you can leave me a question right there. Click submit right there on that page. It comes to me, and I get all of those, and I answer them personally within 24 hours. So don't hesitate to do that. So good point, Mike. Thank you very much. So I will end it here, and we'll be talking to you and hopefully seeing you. You'll be joining us in Cleveland, October 13th and 14th. That's next month. It's a little over a month away. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Hope to see everybody there.
Bye-bye.